you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shabama Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Oh, there you are. Hello, it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, which gives us just 2 hours to get all of this done. So at midnight, Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK, is joining us to go through the newspapers for Wednesday, the Wednesday front pages. And then we've got Johnny Hearn in the studio before that, talking us through a couple of new movies, see what we think of those. And then I'm joined by my brother from another mother, Burton Kelso, will be here live from Kansas City in the USA. But first, and we sort of hit on this on the newspapers this morning, and this is the new online NHS hospital service by 2027, which seems really fast, doesn't it? This is Keir Starmer at the Labour Party conference was talking about a new world is coming, and this is the new digital hospital that he is planning for us in just over a year's time. So what will happen is that in certain conditions, not quite sure what they are yet, you will be put in touch with doctors online. You'll get all of your consultations through that. You will be able to book your own scans, I believe. You'll be able to book your own, which seems a bit reckless, honestly, when there's a number of hypochondriacs that I know that will be booking them every 5 minutes. But anyway, at local hubs, you'll be able to do all sorts of things and keep track on your own health. Now, that all sounds very promising. A lot of lessons, of course, being learned after COVID, where we had to have, you know, Zoom chats with our GP. Now, for me, that suits me. I'm quite happy to do that. It's much quicker. I'm reasonably medically intelligent, so I'm able to ask the right questions. I know what is up with my condition. So it's just, and I'm 10 years into it now, so I'm kind of just rolling with it now. So for me, this sounds like a pretty good idea. But what about for those people who don't actually know what's wrong with them? What about for those people who don't actually have that ability, that recognition of their own health? What happens to them? We're being told that for right now, those people will be able to access real life doctors, and that for people like me, not going in to see real life doctors or seeing them online, we will make space for people who need to see the doctor face to face. But there's something about this I'm uncomfortable with. So joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Chand Nagpal, a GP and former chair of the British Medical Association. Doctor, thank you very much indeed for joining me this evening. Why do I feel a bit uncomfortable about this?
Well, I think, first of all, you know that all announcements at party conferences are often full of well, political pronouncements, and today what we've seen is a lot of headlines of very ambitious plans, and much of this, I would say, you know, does have some merit. There's no doubt that the world in general, not just in medicine, has moved and is continuing to move technologically and digitally. The use of AI is going to be part of our lives. But I think what we heard today was some pronouncements that lacked detail, lacked issues around operational ways in which this will be achieved. But also, as you quite correctly mentioned, you'd almost assume that the future NHS is one where the digital side trumps everything else, whilst you're also correct to mention that there'll be large numbers of patients who will need to be able to access and receive care in more traditional manners, who won't be using smartphones, who won't be savvy, or who in fact who might choose just not to. And what we need to hear much more of is ensuring that we also continue to provide services for everyone, and that no one should be disadvantaged in such a system. No different from a system where often when I try and seek help for, I don't know, my broadband provider, if the only option I have is a bot or a online chat, it's going to be disadvantaging many other people. So I think we need to have these principles of equity in whatever is being proposed.
And that is the issue, isn't it? I mean, already I believe the NHS is a 2 or 3 tier service, depending on if you know how to work it, if you know how to use it, if you know what's wrong with you, if you know your rights, if you know your treatment pathway, or at least you're not happy with it and maybe you can suggest another one. So I do believe that it's already in tiers. For that reason, this will just create another one, won't it? That people will be potentially pushed into doing this kind of online consultation when they don't want to do it.
Sure. Well, look, I'm a GP. I'm a senior partner in a practice that I run alongside others. And we've made a very clear decision from the beginning that we use online tools. We offer it to patients who want to use it, but we go out of our way to make sure that no one is excluded from calling the practice to make an appointment and be given the same guidance, support. And for those who are not digitally enabled but want to be, we offer training if they want to. So I think it's important to always bear in mind that we need to look after all people. And what we didn't hear about today was how the government plans to ensure that those that may not want to use these tools are given the right support and equal access. We didn't hear about that. The other is a lot of assumptions were made today which have no evidence. So, for example, 8.5 million more patients or appointments. You know, we don't really know whether that's actually a replacement of appointments or if it really is extra. Remember that if you are consulting with a specialist or a GP or a doctor online or a clinician, that person is then not available for other work face-to-face. So in fact, now in many GP surgeries, my own included, we're having to replace some of our face-to-face sessions with sessions where we're plowing through online consultations. So you can't be in 2 places at once. And what we haven't heard about today is the staffing implications if you really are going to be expanding another lane on the motorway, so to speak. And actually, if it's really to be an expansion, we haven't got the workforce to do that. The other is that the cost of all of this, you know, at the moment, we're not even getting funding to get our IT up to scratch in terms of modern standards, let alone these very ambitious ideas of how we will be technologically completely enabled in an NHS where everything is a digital front door in the NHS. So I just see there's a bit of a gap between the pronouncements today and the operational reality, which we haven't heard anything about.
So the staffing issue is a really interesting one, because they have stated that there will be dedicated specialists working for this online hospital. If we just think of it as a hospital, there will be dedicated staff there. But as you say, we've already got a shortage. I think the NHS is still looking for a huge number of doctors and nurses to fill vacant positions right now. How are they going to staff from all corners of the country as well? They're saying that people can call from all corners of the country to get to speak to a specialist when we don't have enough at the moment dividing their time between private and NHS work as it is.
You're absolutely right, Petra. And remember, the other point is that we, at the moment, are facing still several million patients on a backlog who are waiting for hip operations, cataract operations, all sorts of surgery, vascular surgery, I could go on. Now, none of those patients can be treated in an online hospital. They're patients who are going to have to go into hospital, have to be physically seen, have to be physically operated on. And so one has to be, I think, realistic about this use of the word hospital and what it can actually deliver. It's not going to be a replacement for the fact that large numbers of patients are going to need to be seen physically face to face. There's no shortcut to being examined, no shortcut to actually having a knee replacement in a hospital. You can't do that online. So the government's actually grappling with this huge backlog. It already realizes that patients are waiting 12 months or more for such procedures. It has made a promise to reduce that waiting list to about 18 weeks. That's its promise. And so I can't seem to fit the pieces together to see how we're going to be doing all of that, and the doctors who are meant to be doing that then finding time to be providing this extra lane on the motorway of online services. Now, I'm not against online and I'm not against digital tools. I think that society is moving, and in many ways you can also become more productive, more efficient. And as you said, people like yourself, I now as a GP will often be consulting with patients who may be at work, they may be away from work, or they may be traveling. And for them, such tools are really useful and really effective. And I can now see photographs of a rash and give advice. I can do a video call. But equally, I serve a large population of older patients who have mobility issues, who don't really have the ability to use smartphones in quite the same way as many of my other patients. And for them, as I said earlier, we've made a conscious decision. We need to support everyone equally. So I think if this was a plan that made sure that the digital tools accompanied other ways of accessing and being provided care, and that was done in a way that no one was left behind, I think that'd be different. But what we're not hearing is about the other side. We're almost assuming that everyone will be forced into, or in fact, those that don't use this will be disadvantaged. I think it's really important to make sure we don't create inequities.
The other comment that I made in my talk up, Doctor, before I got to you, was that I have a certain level of medical intelligence, and I couldn't think of another way of phrasing that. But there are a lot of people who are not as in tune, perhaps, with their health. They don't perhaps know the language to use, and my worry with that is that people who are in front of a screen to somebody, an impersonal somebody, maybe they're talking about something intimate, maybe they just don't quite know the words to get round it. There's nothing like being in person with somebody to calm you down and ask the right questions. That is a concern that I have for people.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a GP, I have to say that I see the reality of what you're describing, which is I can only properly, for significant numbers of my patients, communicate effectively, understand their complaint, the context of their complaint, by the non-verbal cues, by actually being physically able to communicate with them. Yeah. And I think what we mustn't do in the NHS is to create obstacles from people being able to see their clinician, their GP, face to face. So it's really important. What we've heard today is a lot about how the NHS will become a digital front door. We need to have another front door open for those that don't want to use the digital front door, who actually want to have that personal contact with their healthcare professional. And for the reasons you mentioned, there are many patients who will not want to divulge issues of a personal nature in an online form.
Yeah.
They actually, and what we have in my practice, often patients will make an appointment. It'll just be a personal issue. They don't want to discuss their issues and have it triaged in advance by someone else. And I think we need to make sure that those systems of being able to be seen continue alongside the use of digital tools, as I believe they should be in many other walks of life as well. So what we need to hear much more from the government about is that this is a tool, an important area of development, and we should also have the traditional ways of accessing your healthcare practitioner alongside. But also, I think we need to also make sure that we do enable people who want to learn how to use tools, how to use their NHS app. And that's something certainly we're doing in my practice and many other GP practices are running now training sessions for those that feel they want to. And the other thing I've learned is that it's important not to generalize. A lot of my patients who are much older, who have not been, you could say, brought up in the digital age, actually they use WhatsApp all the time. They're fervent users of WhatsApp, and once you've actually managed to load the NHS app on, which is a challenge in itself because you have to authenticate it, so it's not easy, but once it's been loaded onto their phones, they can actually use it quite effectively. So I've been quite surprised at how many patients, once they've been helped to load it, in fact, many of them are now being able to issue their prescriptions or request their prescriptions, whereas before they were having to come to our surgery with a piece of paper ticking the scripts they wanted. So it can become much more efficient.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love that system when I'm running, because I have to have regular prescriptions, so it's great just to go in and tick the box. Is there a concern, Doctor, that again, I'm a very cynical person, comes with the job, that at some point in this digital future, we could see human doctors replaced with AI versions with the knowledge, but none of the humanity. Is that a worry as well, looking at the future of going digital with the NHS?
No, I do think it's a worry. I think it's a worry that it will be tempting, I think, for any government to always look at how it can, in cost terms, be as efficient as possible. And there is a difference between getting a message about looking after yourself in terms of an online information about your health. There's a big difference between that and actually having a clinician talk to you, explain to you, answer questions. We're actually seeing a lot of that in mental health these days, where people are being asked to go online to with depression. People are being asked to do CBT online using software. Now, it works for many people, but for many others, it's just not appropriate because actually it's too mechanical, and I think the system often will favor such automated ways of consulting because it actually it's cheaper, but it also doesn't require a human being to be involved. But I think you raise a really important point, and I think that it's important that as we develop policy, we must be mindful of the fact that there is, for many instances, no substitute for actually being able to have that human contact, and no automated system can replace that. And as a GP who looks after people in terms of not just the fact they've got a cough, it looks after them as a person and in the context of their lives. That context cannot be captured in a sterile digital exchange. So I think that there is value, and there are going to be people who actually don't have the time to come. They'll want to have that information. As you said, people like yourself often who know about the system can use these tools very effectively. But I totally agree that we need to guard against policymakers getting so you could say drawn into this idea, because what it looks like to them is being able to get more productivity. Just like when you heard earlier the announcement today, 8.5 million more appointments promised under the NHS hospital. It sounds very grand, but are these going to be proper appointments, or are these going to be simply bits of information sent to your phone, counting as a consultation?
Yeah, quite. The other thing is, of course, with health, it is very personal, and sometimes you have to deliver bad news, and I presume that these online doctors will have to do the same. Where is the duty of care when it comes to delivering to somebody like you were now, if it was you delivering to me that I had cancer, for example, in this kind of setting? I just worry, again, I'm concerned that it's just dehumanising the medical profession, which has to be the most human contact that we have outside of our families, right? We come to see about intimate things, about personal things, about scary things, our deepest, darkest fears we will share with a doctor. We don't do that with anybody else. And yet, it feels like we're being pushed further away. Where is that duty of care? Listen, Petrie, I've got to give you some bad news. I've got 2 minutes. I can do it now.
I'm agreeing with you, Petrie. I think that there's no doubt that whatever we see in terms of the digital age, there are some and significant amount of proportion of what we do as healthcare professionals cannot be replaced by digital exchanges. There is no other way of breaking bad news and in a humane way other than being with that person, being able to look at them in the eye, for them to be able to look at you, express their anxieties, be able to be sensitive, see them as a human being. You can't do that at the other end of a phone. You cannot do that even, I think, on a video consultation. So we need to make sure that aspect of the way we provide care does not somehow get diminished, both in terms of volume, but also in terms of its value in its own right. Because there is a therapeutic aspect about seeing people face to face when it's appropriate and when it's needed. And when you're breaking bad news, that's a really important example you give, and something I have to deal with as a GP. And we routinely tell my staff when there's any significant medical issue, I will say, and I will actually say, I'd like the patient to be seen face to face. We get online requests from many patients who actually, there's a question that asks, how would you like to consult your GP? And many will say on the telephone, probably because they're busy. But I will often say to my staff, will you please ask them to come in? Because I know I cannot do justice to a person who's going through a difficult time, who may be depressed, on a phone call. I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to show that I'm there for them. I want to be able to understand what their concerns are. And you have to do that in a human way. And breaking bad news is a very important example.
And picking up, as you said, on those non-verbal cues, because a lot of people don't know how much they're speaking through their body language, but you as a sort of a trained doctor will recognise, or a twinge that somebody hasn't mentioned because they didn't want to bother you with it. Again, that sort of diagnosis, if you like, or beginning of diagnosis will be lost.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you first of all, if you can't see someone and you can't see their facial expression, on a phone call, a person who may be depressed or feeling very anxious can conceal it just by conceal it in terms of the way they speak. But if they're right in front of you, you can actually see what they're feeling. You can relate to that. You can empathize. So I totally agree. I think one of my worries is that what we don't want is the public to somehow think that they cannot be physically seen face to face, because if they think that the NHS is now about digital contact only, they may themselves feel less likely to even stake their claim to being seen face to face. Well, I think it's so important that we do develop the technological changes that the NHS will benefit from. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's good. And the technological changes we've seen ourselves, even as you mentioned earlier, the ability to request a prescription from your phone has made a huge difference to so many people's lives, as an example. And so we need to people being able to see the results of their tests has made a huge difference to so many who would otherwise have been anxious waiting to make an appointment to find out what the result of their blood test was. So I think, there's no doubt there's a really important role for technology. We just need to make sure that we don't politicize it to the point where it seems to be presented as some solution to everything in the NHS, to give, I mean, even this word, the NHS online hospital.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty loaded,
Really
the title, and it gives people the impression that somehow we're going to be able to replace normal hospitals with this other way of caring for people. That's not quite correct, and so I just think we need to do this in a wise, measured way. Certainly develop technology, but at the same time retain the irreplaceable element of human contact and the fact that we as doctors and nurses will always need to be able to see people face to face, see them in the way we've always seen them, and many of them will need physical treatments that cannot be treated over a online tool. So as long as, you know, that's my plea to politicians, you know, have balance in the way we're approaching this, so that you know, we can meaningfully use technology alongside the skill set we have in the way we manage patients physically.
God, I hope they're listening. Dr. Chand, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Chand Nagpal there, GP and former chair of the British Medical Association. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. Just a reminder that coming up is Burton Kelso, and then Johnny Hearn with some movies before Kevin Schofield is here at midnight. But I thought I'd use these few minutes here. I had a look through the papers today to find a nice, light, fun story, just to cheer us all up, because the world is just so grim, isn't it? This is from, which one's this one from? This is the Daily Mail from today. Make mine a burgundy. This is for those of you who like a glass of wine in the evening, and maybe you've got a pet cat or a pet dog that you would like to share these drinks with. Well, now cats and dogs are getting their own version of wine. It's Muttley's estate. We used to have a dog called Muttley. Do you remember Muttley? Dick Dastardly and Muttley, Wacky Races? Yeah, that he was the dog who just laughed like that. But anyway, Muttley's estate, a company based in New Zealand, has unveiled a range of pet-friendly wines. I mean, you literally couldn't make this stuff up. I tell you what, though, there are so many pet owners that will definitely buy this. I mean, I think it's just a little bit too silly for me. But instead of alcohol, the wines, including champagne, Pinot Noir, and Sauvignon Blanc, contain catnip. This common herb is effective in relaxing cats as well as dogs. This is according to Muttley's estate. Just like in cats, some dogs may experience a calming effect when exposed to catnip. The company's website says it can be used in situations where the dog is experiencing anxiety or stress during thunderstorms or fireworks. Funnily enough, wine works for me like that as well. To create its own wine, Muttley's estate grows its own catnip before combining the herb with water and preservatives. It is £5.60 for a 150 ml bottle. That's 3 servings. The pet-friendly wine certainly isn't cheap, but rather than making it a fun novelty, the makers claim it has several health benefits for cats. For cats, it includes stress reduction, mood enhancement. It's just like wine for humans, isn't it? And appetite stimulation, and natural insect repellent. I don't think wine is a natural insect repellent, although gin and tonic is. It's the quinine. The mosquitoes don't like it. Catnip contains a compound called, oh no, I'm going to do a Donald Trump, yeah, I can't say it, which can trigger temporary euphoria in cats. So there you go. When you sit down to have your glass of wine of an evening, your cat or your dog can now join you in that delight, and you can both get really calm and soothed and a little bit jolly from your glasses of wine together.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and joining me now is my brother from another mother, Burton Kelso, Chief Tech Expert at Integral in Kansas City, USA. Burton, it has been a minute.
It has been a minute. How have you been?
I've been good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Just traveling the country speaking about AI and cybersecurity and all that other stuff, you know?
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should talk about digital IDs at some point.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, gateway to a disaster area. But let's start, Burton, talking about the end of Windows 10. Who's still using Windows?
Well, I mean, the sad thing is that if you've got a Windows 10 computer, it's still a working computer. But obviously, Microsoft wants you to go to 11. But the bad news is, up until a few days ago, people in Europe weren't going to be able to keep or extend their support for Windows 10. They were going to only offer that to people in the U.S. Isn't that crazy? But
Why?
Microsoft changed their mind. Who knows? Probably greed.
Yeah. So, I mean, 10 is relatively new, right? So it's just being replaced by 11. That is greedy and rude, isn't it? Just to cut people off.
Well, 10 is about 10 years old.
Oh,
so
is
we're
it
at
now?
The off point. But at the same time, there are computers that can run 10 that are capable, but they're not able to update to 11. So we're talking about computers that you may have purchased 2 or 3 years ago, which is new, but Microsoft has made it so you can't update those computers from 10 to 11. But what they're doing now is offering an extended update for individuals for another year. You can get your security updates, and for some businesses, up to 3 years. So it's good that they've had this change of heart. But I mean, it's just one of those great mysteries of the unknown why they were just going to offer that only to people in the U.S.
It's really interesting, isn't it, though, with these makers, these manufacturers, they just build in obsolescence so that we have no choice but to get the new iPhone. We know that the batteries start to degrade. We know that. That is a built-in design. Something that clever surely could have built a cleverer battery. Things like they try to switch out the chargers, so you have to buy new headphones and charger. You know, all of that. It is pretty disgusting to treat your customers in that way.
It is. And Apple, I would have to say, is worse than Microsoft. Apple, you're probably getting the most 5 years out of any Apple product. And this whole tariff situation is horrible because I rushed out and got a new iPhone because I thought the tariffs were going to have this big effect as far as the purchase price for my iPhone.
And it didn't.
It didn't. Well, I mean, there's a little increase, but not major.
Yeah. Yet. I think a lot of them those big tariffs are due to kick in. I just think it's terrible. I mean, they do it with washing machines. They do it with everything now. That they're only supposed to last, you know, a couple of years at max, and then you buy another one. I saw a story today about a woman who'd bought a £1,200 television set, and within 2 years it was defunct, and they're not giving them any money. They're just saying, no, that's the lifespan, that's it, you know.
That's it.
Buy a new one. It's disgusting.
Right.
Absolutely disgusting.
It is.
OpenAI chat. This is a really, really sad story, isn't it? But it doesn't stand alone, unfortunately. It's young people getting really seriously bad instructions from, you know, all sorts of online practices telling them to self-harm, some suicides that are caused every year by this kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'm not going to completely blame AI on this. I blame parents for not being responsible and checking up what their kids do on their electronic devices, because any piece of technology can be turned from good to bad. Apple AirTags, you can track your devices, but you can also track people. Same thing with AI. I mean, you can put in stuff that's going to give you good content, but at the same time, if you put in negative material, it's going to spit it out. And the problem with technology and young minds don't know how to handle technology. So parents need to be a little bit more responsible and, you know, keep up with their kids and understand not every piece of technology that comes out is going to be a good fit for your kid. You have to really judge and understand how it works and if it's going to be a good fit.
I mean, it's really, this is sad. It's a young teenager who died, didn't he, by suicide after the AI was telling him about coaching him on methods of self-harm. But like you said, these are not, I mean, it's called artificial intelligence, but it really will only answer the question you ask it, right?
That's correct, and it's just yanking information off of the internet. I mean, it's not some self-aware, self-thinking robot. So I think it's a good thing that OpenAI has started the precedence of installing parental controls in ChatGPT. And I think they would have done it before, but they didn't realize that so many young people were going to jump on the AI wagon. So good for them to roll it out this month, meaning the upcoming month of October. But I think other AI tools will obviously follow suit. And so you'll see parental controls in just about every AI tool out there, because it's needed, obviously.
It is needed until artificial intelligence understands emotional intelligence. It will continue just to give the answers to these very harmful questions. That's the problem, isn't it?
Right.
What is Sora AI?
Sora AI is video creation and image creation AI from OpenAI, the people that create ChatGPT. So the whole purpose is that you can type in a sentence and it'll generate video that's pretty realistic. You can get anywhere from 5 to 20-second video clips. And Sora is not the only one. Gemini, meaning Google, Grok, which is Elon Musk's AI tool, will generate video. But the big thing with Sora AI and its video now, they're telling copyright holders, if you don't want your stuff included in our Sora 2.0, you need to write us a letter so that we'll keep it out, which I think is pretty horrible. I mean, I think
that's terrible.
It is. So you don't know until it's on the internet and you're like, oh, this is our copyrighted material. but then you have to write OpenAI and say, yeah, we want to opt out of that. So any intellectual property from movie studios, from authors, you name it, you have to opt out. So I shouldn't say buyer beware. If you've got a copyright on something and it's either image or video, you better write OpenAI right now so that your intellectual property doesn't show up in any AI tool.
That is disgraceful that people have to opt out. It should be the other way round. It should be that permission is sought from these artists and then can be denied, because opting out, that would be quite complicated. You'd have to prove that you had copyright on it. You'd have to prove that it was your original artwork. You would have to prove that all sorts of things and show them an example of it. And I mean, that is a major ask.
Yes, it's an arduous task if you have copyright on just about anything. But I think, Petrie, that the video AI race has ramped up so much and everyone wants to stay competitive. They want to be able to allow people to create that borderline intellectual property stuff, from popular cartoons to superheroes to even movie characters. So they want that ability for people to create that. And they're telling people, well, if you don't want that, you got to contact us. And it's not really clear how that's going to be done.
That is appalling. These big tech companies really take the biscuit, don't they? Talking of tech, and we've got a real problem around the world at the moment with data breaches and hackers. I guess we can suspect where it's coming from, but this is about nurseries here in London that were hacked, and photographs of children being held for ransom.
Yeah, not only in the UK, but over in the US, and I forget what other countries. I'm trying to think of the company that does that. Now I got to cheat. Kiddos Nurseries,
yeah.
Yeah, they've got them in US, India, and China. So there are global companies. But the challenge is, again, with cybercrime, is that it's a human problem. So these companies that hold our information need to do a better job of protecting us from criminals, because that's all they're after now. Not just pieces of data, but they also want our images too. And these companies need to do a better job, especially when you have Kiddo, a company that spans across 3 continents. You've got to do better to protect our data. And it's really sad, especially innocent children. I think this is probably one of the worst things I've seen in a while as far as data breaches are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, photographs of children, being held to ransom. I mean, those parents must be beside themselves. But why is it, we're constantly now almost being forced to use digital options and online banking, and I know we're further forward than the US with banking and banking apps and things like that, but you don't have any choice. So it used to be a choice, and then they shut down the high street banks, so you don't have a choice anymore, for example. And yet they don't look after our data well enough, or they're lagging behind the hackers. It just seems to be so unfair that we don't have any choice but to use these systems. And then I've just been talking about the NHS going digital. That's our medical information, that's private conversations with a doctor being held digitally. I don't trust them.
I don't either, especially when you can go to specific websites and see that companies are being breached daily, globally. So I mean, there's a problem, but the problem's not the hackers, because they're doing what they do. They're criminals. Yeah. They do criminal work. It's these companies that realize that there are cyber criminals out there definitely need to do a better job at protecting data. That's why it's out of hand.
It's completely, I mean, as I said to you at the beginning, they're now mandating that we have digital IDs over my dead body. But, it's just, governments have an appalling record. I mean, look at the American government. They handed all the digital information on each and every single one of you to a bunch of teenagers that were in Doge. I mean, they don't care about our data. That's the problem.
No, and obviously with data, whether it's images or just data, raw data, there's money to be made.
Yeah.
I mean, billions to be made. So, I mean, that's the ultimate choice that these companies give out the information. And the sad thing, I think a lot of the parent companies are responsible. The challenge is they give a lot of this data to third-party vendors who are really lax and think, well, no one's going to know about us. And you've got a data breach out there. So I think the moral of the story is you can still be selective and have your information removed off the internet or off specific sites. I mean, in the U.S., California's got a privacy law, and I think more states are going to adopt that. And I think more people are starting to wise up and realize that you need to make sure any personal information that you can keep off the internet, you need to do so.
Yeah, I use a company called Delete Me.
I was going to throw that out there. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Every month they go through everything and and the amount of times my name, my address, my age, I mean, it's just like so they just clean it all off.
Good for you, and I'm glad you gave them a plug on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you gave them a plug on air, because Delete Me is one of the excellent services. So in UK price, how much is Delete Me a month?
Oh, it's hardly anything. I mean, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's really, it's a really good service. Yeah, I keep as much of my stuff offline as I possibly can. Burton, it's lovely to see you. It really is a joy. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you soon. You stay well. Burton Kelso there. Quick break, and then it's time to look at movies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie, and coming up at midnight we have Kevin Schofield who'll be going through the papers for Wednesday. But right now we have Johnny Hearn, filmmaker, broadcaster and Talk film reporter in the studio. Now, have we got films you like?
Definitely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I know. I've been a bit harsh recently, haven't I?
No, it's fine. I'm down for that. I love that.
Good.
So, talk to me about the Partisan.
Right. Okay. Full disclosure to start with. I know the guys who made this film, the producers. I also helped develop the script of this film many years ago.
So it's brilliant.
So it's absolutely amazing. Obviously, the story. So full disclosure, yeah. So I do have a connection to this film, although I wasn't involved in the making of it, but I did help develop the script and the story. So this is the true story about Christina Skarbek, who was a Polish woman in World War II, who left and was recruited when she was in Budapest by the British Secret Services, and she was trained and then sent on missions. Her first one was back into Poland. She was sent on to loads and loads of other secret missions. She became one of the top spies of British intelligence, and she was and the bulk of the film was about when she was sent to France to work in Vercors, which was an occupied region, to work with the Maquis, the resistance there, to help fight against the Nazi occupation, with this view that they were going to have a huge arms dump sent to them so that they could basically retake that region, unaware that actually they were being a little bit set up by the British. And so it's the true story about her first and last missions that she ever did. So it starts off with her going to Warsaw to do a little mission for the British government, but also to try and save her mother, who's still trapped there. And then 4 years later or so, back when she goes to France, and this trying to work with the Maquis, to the French resistance, to try and get rid of the Nazis.
I mean, already I love that. It's right up my street, as you know. You would appreciate that. It's my sort of movie. Do we have a clip?
We do. Yeah.
Marvellous. Let's have a listen or a look at the trailer clip for The Partisan. It's a 15, it's 1 hour 48, and it's in cinemas from Friday.
You're not from this part. You're an imposter.
Who are those men?
Resistance fighters. This is my land. You no idea how it feels to watch it wash away with your people's blood.
Who are you?
A fraud. Pretending you care about their cause.
What do I care about?
You know, you're lying to yourself if you think this is really you.
The hardest lie to recognize is the one you tell yourself.
Save your soul before it's too late. We're coming out of the shadows to end it like soldiers!
It's beautifully shot.
It is.
It looks very realistic.
Yeah, it's very, very well made. The whole film was shot in Poland. It's basically a Polish film, although it's in the English language. It's financed from Poland, and it was shot in Poland.
Great filmmakers in Poland.
Yeah, really good film school as well.
Yeah.
So Morgan Polanski, who plays Christina Skarbek, obviously Roman Polanski's daughter. Malcolm McDowell in it as well. He's absolutely brilliant. I thought the performances were sensational. I loved the way that it looks, you know, the way that it's been made, and it is. I know what the budget is for this film, and I can tell you, they did really well for the budget of this film, because you would look at that and you would think, you know, if that was a Hollywood production, the budget would be 10 times what it is. I can tell you that. But it looks absolutely amazing. I know they spent a long time doing this. I saw a cut of it 2 years ago before they had all the CGI effects and everything in the background. So that I know that the guys, Christian and Matt and Rob, the three producers, they worked really, really hard for years to get this film made, and it's an absolute credit to them that they've managed to finally get it done and get it released and get it into cinemas, because it is a beautifully made film.
That is real dedication, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love that about artists, that they will just keep pushing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So at the other end of the scale then, in terms of budget, one battle after another.
Yes.
This
very much the other end of the...
Very much the other end of the scale. Leonardo DiCaprio alone
yes.
Would have cost 10 times their budget.
Yes, he was paid, I believe, his standard $25 million, which, yes, is substantially more than the entire budget of The Partisan.
That's a coincidence, because that's what I charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
I don't get it, no, obviously. So tell me about this movie. This has got some really good reviews, which make me a little bit nervous sometimes, because I don't always agree with a lot of reviewers.
Okay, so this is written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and this is the guy who did There Will Be Blood, which was the film, absolutely brilliant movie. I'm not a massive fan of his films, although obviously There Will Be Blood is absolutely... Daniel Day-Lewis won an Oscar for it. You know, he's fantastic. So this is a film, stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and a young actress called Chase Infiniti. I think that's how you pronounce it. So Leonardo DiCaprio plays a guy who is a member of an organisation called French 75, which is a sort of a political revolutionary group in America. And they were responsible for a whole series of sort of basically declaring war against the American government and releasing people held in immigration camps and things like that. When that group is
timely,
yes, well, exactly. This is set in the past, and then when they're captured, they're disbanded, and he and his daughter, his infant daughter, who he had with one of the other members of the group, as a mixed race daughter, they go into witness protection and go off and start a new life. So then cuts to 16 years later, and the daughter's grown up and is at school, and Leonardo DiCaprio sort of basically turned to booze because he's not a revolutionary anymore. Into that comes Sean Penn, who was the arresting officer of them, and he'd taken a fancy to Leonardo DiCaprio's wife and had an affair with her. He is the father of the child, but he has been asked to join a white supremacist group, and of course he can't join a white supremacist group if he has a mixed race daughter. So he then sets about to track them down so that he can the daughter and wipe his slate clean, so to speak, so that he can join this white supremacist group. And so most of the film is basically this sort of cat and mouse chase sequence between Sean Penn going after the daughter and Leonardo DiCaprio going after Sean Penn to try and stop him. So it's a long film, probably about an hour and a half of it is just this enormous chase scene.
Yeah, it's 2 hours 40, so it's an hour on top of the Partisan. Yeah. We have a clip, so let's have a look or a listen to One Battle After Another. It is a 15, as I said, 2 hours 40, and it's in cinemas right now. Is there some humour in it? It looks like
it is quite funny in places. Funny. Yeah, it's a very, very odd film because it kind of doesn't. It looks great, and all this. If you take any sort of 5 minutes of that film and watched it, you think, "Oh, that's great, that's really good," or any 10 minutes, or even only 15 minutes, you think, "Oh, this is really great." When you start putting it together, you realise it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
And it feels like to me, it's the extended director's cut. It feels like it's the version with all the cut scenes and all the extra scenes put into it. I genuinely think you could cut an hour out of this film and you wouldn't lose anything of it. It's
a little bit indulgent.
It is a little bit indulgent. I think this could have made a sort of brilliant 100-minute, 105, 110-minute movie, but it's not. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Having said that, the actors are fantastic. DiCaprio's great. Benicio del Toro's brilliant. Sean Penn, I'm going to say now, here, at the end of September, Sean Penn will get an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in that, because he's absolutely phenomenal. And if you know anything about Sean Penn, you know he's completely the opposite of the character he's portraying in this film. So I'm saying right now he's going to get an Oscar nomination.
I've heard that they think there's going to be a few Oscar nods on this as well. I mean, I'm
sure it will, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Paul Thomas Anderson is the kind of director that the industry likes, and so he'll probably get director, scripts, film kind of nods as well.
Yeah. Do you think the Partisan will get anything?
I would like to think it will, although it's not going to get as big a release. I don't know whether it will. Yeah, I don't know whether it will Oscars. I think BAFTAs. It's got a really good chance. Polish Film Institute Awards. Almost certainly it will do very well. I'd like to think it does, because I think it deserves something.
Well, somebody who's put that much work into a movie and taken that much care over bringing it to the screens. I mean, that deserves an award in itself, doesn't it?
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
I know it doesn't. I know. John, thank you. John Hahn, there, our filmmaker, broadcaster, and talk film reporter. Right, coming up. We have the newspapers for Wednesday on Wednesday, which is going to be brilliant, and Kevin Schofield will be here to go through.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
According to Keir Starmer, if you think young men that illegally cross the English Channel should be detained and deported, you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next hour, and joining me to discuss the front pages of today's newspapers is Kevin Schofield. He is the political editor at the Huffington Post UK, as you know. Hello, Kevin, how are you?
Not bad, Petrie. How are you?
Good, I'm good. All the better, obviously, for seeing your jolly little face. Right. Yeah. Let's have a look, first of all, at the Seattle Times. Really interesting times in America at the moment, and two of the stories I want to talk about are actually on the front page of this paper. Seattle and Washington leaders say they're preparing for the city to be the next target of President Donald Trump's escalating orders deploying troops to Democratic-led cities. This is heading off to Seattle and Portland. Trump's order for military deployment in Portland came over the weekend in a social media post, which he said he was directing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to send troops into what he called war-ravaged Portland. And it is no such thing.
No, it's not. And the worrying thing I think about this is that it's becoming almost normal. You know, this has been on for weeks now. You know, it started off in Washington, D.C. And, you know, if any other president in history had tried this, it would have been an outrage. And
it's illegal, isn't it, to send troops?
It is an outrage,
yeah,
obviously. But the fact that he's just trying to make it appear normal now, and it's always Democrat-led cities that he's aiming for, that he's sending the military in. I mean, it beggars belief, actually, you know, that a president would send the military in against his own people simply for having the temerity to elect a Democratic senator or governor. I mean, it beggars belief, quite frankly, and it's also part of a trend now.
It's interesting to me as well, Kevin, how his language is ratcheting up to describe a city as war-ravaged.
Yeah, I mean, it's complete nonsense. I mean, you know, all cities have crime. That's what we have the police for, to try and contain it and deal with those who inevitably do break the law. But the idea that you just send in military personnel to quell the populace, it's straight out of the dictator's handbook, isn't it? And you know, all the warnings about President Trump before he got back in again, people said, no, this time he'll be out for revenge. This time, you know, it'll make his first term seem like a tea party, and that's just the way it's turning out. I mean, I don't think anyone probably believed it would actually be quite like this. But it is, and you're right, the rhetoric has been ramped up. He's almost like he's emboldened now. He's done it elsewhere. There hasn't really been much in the way of comeback on him at all. And now he's just going on and doing it in other places as well. And just the very notion of a president setting the military against his own populace is absolutely extraordinary.
And there was that really bizarre meeting with 400 odd top generals and admirals yesterday, as well, where Donald Trump suggested that he'd spoken to Pete Hegseth about using these situations as war training grounds for troops, which is horrifying.
Absolutely, it is absolutely astonishing. As I just said, sending the military against your own people, and yeah, it's chilling actually. The suggestion that it would be some sort of training exercise before going overseas for an actual war. It is absolutely extraordinary, talking about using full force if necessary.
Yeah, that means presumably shooting people.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a really good quote in the piece. The Seattle mayor, a Democrat, obviously, saying, he's urging Trump not to send troops to the city, saying there is no crisis that justifies putting, quotes, armoured vehicles, semi-automatic weapons and military personnel on the streets. There is not an insurrection here, which, I mean, it seems remarkable that even has to point that out, but it's not as if the local population are rising up against the state and you're having to send in the military to, like in some, a banana republic, having to send in the military to quell an uprising. It's nothing of the sort. It's just purely politically vindictive.
And my understanding is as well that the mayor of Portland, Oregon, is looking to sue because, of course, it's an illegal move for him to do it without first being asked, as Gavin Newsom pointed out, that he's not allowed to do it without request from the governor for that sort of military support.
No, but he seems, in this and in other areas, Trump seems to be convinced that because he's the president, he can just do whatever he likes, literally do whatever he likes, that the checks and balances do not apply to him. The law in America doesn't apply to him. He can just, because he wants to do it, and he's the president and he was elected, then he can just go ahead and do it. And, as I said earlier, no president in history has ever taken that type of attitude. And you just wonder how far he can push it. You've got to imagine there must be some sort of breaking point where either the legal establishment or political opposition say, right, enough's enough here. This is just bonkers. We cannot go on like this. But for now, he seems to be getting away with it. I mean, it can't last forever, surely, but for now, this madness seems to be, unfortunately, continuing.
A lot of people are suggesting that he wants to, because he's going after these democratic cities, New York is on the list as well, that he wants to create some form of uprising so that he can issue in martial law and suspend elections. That's what many people are suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, and, up until now, I've always thought that was a little bit far-fetched that
me too.
But you hear him talking about Trump 2028 standing again, even though constitutionally he's not allowed to stand for a third term in office, and yet would you really put it past him? No. With the midterms coming up next year as well, that he in some way tries to manoeuvre it so that those elections don't take place. I still find that hard to believe, but I mean, he's gone beyond unconventional in terms of a presidency to just outright bizarre. And I don't think anything can probably be ruled out right now.
Well, he did say, didn't he, when he finally grasped why Ukraine hadn't had any elections in the last 3 years. He was in the Oval Office and he said, oh, so you don't have elections when war has been declared? And then he went, oh, that's interesting. And that's why I'm wondering about this language of using against these cities war ravaged. You know, you know how cynical I am, Kevin, and I listen to everything from a slight sort of skew. When you hear words like that and knowing that, you know, elections don't happen during a war, and if there's an enemy within, he can declare it's a war, then those elections could be suspended because of that.
Yeah, I remember him saying that when he was with Volodymyr Zelensky, and he said it almost as a throwaway joke, and with a bit of a sort of smirk on his face. But, you know, you have to take him seriously, you know. Someone said you take him literally but don't take him seriously. Well, I mean, I think as I say, nothing can be ruled out entirely. He clearly, it is a thought rattling around in his brain that he could potentially stop elections from happening. And is anyone in the Republican Party going to stand up to him? No. That's the big question. We know that the Democrats are obviously going to oppose him, but their power is limited right now.
They're woeful at the moment, yeah. But he did say on the campaign trail, vote for me and you'll never have to vote again. And as you said, he never throws away a line. You know, he means it.
Yeah, absolutely. And people at the time say, no, that's not what he means, and obviously he's not serious, and etc. etc. Well, I mean, for every example that he's set since he was re-elected would suggest that, you know, the rule book, precedent have all been thrown out of the window. Yeah. And literally anything can happen.
Now, he has other issues to deal with as opposed to a non-war ravaged Portland, and that is a government shutdown. It's at midnight Eastern time. And the last shutdown was in his last administration, 2018 to 2019. That was the longest ever in history. It was 35 days. And this is a big, serious problem for America. This is when all federal employees, if they're necessary, they have to keep working, but without getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And another remarkable situation. Now, we almost come across this on an almost annual basis now, don't we? The threat of a shutdown, but there is usually some sort of last-minute deal that's cobbled together to kick the can further down the road until the next time. Well, the next time has arrived, and you're right, the last actual shutdown was in his first term, and here we are again. There doesn't look to be any room for compromise between the Republican and the Democrats, and you know, compromise is now a dirty word in American politics. This idea of bipartisan agreement on areas such as this in order to get budgets through to keep the government operating, which is in everyone's interest, obviously, that does not seem to be possible. And yeah, I mean, it is a really, really dangerous situation. As you say, Petrie, so many federal employees would still have to work, but without being paid, and that is, you know, millions of people. So very worrying indeed. And yet he does not seem to be given his full focus.
No.
Let's just say.
No. I mean, this is a disaster. The fact that they can't reach agreement on budgets, and this is to do with the big, beautiful bill, and, you know, getting rid of Medicaid and SNAP and all those other things, and the Democrats are not want to sign that off. But of course, the Republicans have got control of everything, but they're still not able to get this through. And aren't they now refusing to sign in a Democrat as well, who I mean, that's to do with the Epstein files, but they're not even signing in Democrats now who've been lawfully elected.
No, exactly, and it's because no one in the Republican Party seems either willing or able to stand up to Trump. He completely dominates that party. Anyone who shows any sort of freedom of thought or opinion is quickly crushed by the White House, and therefore no one else is willing to do it. There are obviously many sensible Republicans who undoubtedly will be aghast at the behaviour of Donald Trump, and yet they are mute. Yeah, I mean, you can just imagine in this country where the government just to shut down, the government offices just close their doors. It would be it'd be chaos, which is exactly what's going to transpire in America unless a deal can be cobbled together literally at the 11th hour. And yet, thus far, it doesn't seem as if that's likely or probable or anything. It just seems like it's not going to happen. And well, there'll be some sort of agreement eventually, but the damage that will be done in the interim.
Well, it was billions last time. The 35 days it cost the states billions, and of course it'll be DC that has the biggest effect, because most of the federal employees are around that area. It's a really scary time, actually. And like I said, you've got border control, you've got police. All those people have to continue working, but they don't get paid for it. And that to me is just absolutely bonkers. Kevin, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will start with the Sun newspaper.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here, and with me, Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Kevin, the Sun newspaper, we broke this yesterday, actually. Nicole files for divorce after 3 years apart. And I was speaking to my reporter, Michelle Polino, in LA, and she said whenever she met them, they seemed to be really happy. You just never know what's going on, do you?
No, apparently, according to this story, they've been living apart for 3 years. But they've managed to keep it quiet, which is, I think, why it's come as such a shock that they're divorcing. So
after 19 years.
19 years officially together, but Obviously, I've been living apart for 3 years then.
I mean, it must be difficult. You know, they're both really busy in different parts of the world, doing different things. It's very hard to keep that together. It is sad. It's just, you know, just famous, rich, beautiful people split up is kind of, you know. But I suppose when you're that much of an icon couple, it is sad.
Yeah, no, it is, and yeah, as you say, you've seen it so many times before. It's not an industry, show business, I guess, that lends itself to long relationships. I think that's why they're so few and far between, and the couples that do stay together are very notable for that, and that's why I think this one has caused such a shock, because people thought that they were in it for forever. But it would appear that things weren't quite as rosy behind the scenes, unfortunately. So yeah, it's sad, but I suppose if there were irreconcilable differences, it's better, I guess, that they are no longer apart, and then at least they can go and pursue their own lives and have some happiness on their own.
Well, another couple that don't seem to be making it is Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. They're definitely heading for a split, I would say.
Who could possibly have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was extraordinary, really, today. Nigel Farage sort of exposing himself as a bit of a snowflake, really, I think. It's straight out of the Trump playbook. You know, we've seen it in America, that Trump trying to whip up this idea that there is some sort of leftist conspiracy to wish violence, effectively, on their political opponents, and we can see Nigel Farage trying to drum up that type of atmosphere here. Now, listen, there's no doubt that Keir Starmer has really, and not just Keir Starmer, but other senior Labour figures have really gone for Nigel Farage personally.
They're obsessed, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I saw someone say earlier, joking, you know, there's been more mentions of Nigel Farage at the Labour Party conference than there was at the Reform UK conference, and there's probably some truth in that, actually. It's just day upon day they've been talking about it. Keir Starmer devoted a large chunk of his keynote speech today to attacking Nigel Farage. But, you know, that is part and parcel of politics. Sometimes it can be, maybe the language can be a little bit over the top, but, you know, it is a contact sport, politics. That is just the way it is. So I think, you know, for Nigel Farage to throw up his hands and accuse Keir Starmer and others of potentially inciting violence against Reform UK activists, you know, mentioning Charlie Kirk today, which I thought was pretty extraordinary. But that's where we are now.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think Keir Starmer is capable of inciting anything, let alone violence. I mean, he can barely incite people to support him in his own party.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't think people would literally see Keir Starmer as a rabble rouser.
No.
I just don't think that's
like I said, he can barely incite loyalty. So I don't think that's what his intention was. But it has been extraordinary. Rachel Reeves did the same thing. Is constantly mentioning reform. It's like, oh dear, they really are, you know, living rent free in your head. Right, let's turn to the FT. Starmer musters flag-waving Labour for patriotic battle against reform. He was talking about the flags, people hanging flags up and sort of taking back ownership of them and saying, please feel free to put as many flags as you like, of all British flags, wherever you want to.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit strange. It felt a little bit forced and false, really. You saw the members of the cabinet, others in the hall had been given little flags to fly at the correct moment during the speech.
Welsh flags and English flags.
Scottish flags, English flags, Union flags. I mean, it is. I mean, you can see why they're doing it. You know, all the controversy there's been all over the summer about whether flags should be allowed to fly from lampposts, and the idea that the left hate Britain. That's certainly what's been put about by Reform. So this is an attempt by Labour and Keir Starmer to reclaim patriotism for the left of centre. Basically, hit back at this pretty corrosive idea that the left just hates this country. So,
like you said, it's straight out of the MAGA playbook, isn't it? Straight out of that.
Of course it is, and that's why you've had Keir Starmer quite a few times now has described Nigel Farage and Reform as plastic patriots. So it's all about how you define patriotism. That was a big part of Keir Starmer's speech today. He says, he loves this country for its diversity, its tolerance, whereas he says Nigel Farage doesn't like Britain, doesn't like that type of Britain, doesn't want to see Britain succeed. He wants to feed on grievance, talk Britain down, say that Britain is broken. Yeah, fair enough, but I remember Keir Starmer
doing
going
the
on
same
about Britain being broken when the Tories were in power. It is a story as old as time, really. Opposition parties always say that Britain is broken, so vote for them to improve it. And lo and behold, once they get into power, all of a sudden, everything's fine and dandy, they say, and the opposition, who have perhaps been in power previously, then start saying everything's broken. So you can understand maybe why voters get a little bit annoyed at this sort of this little dance, this political dance that the parties do. But that was the big message, I think, from Keir Starmer's speech today. It was all about.
The thing is, though, it'll just rile up Reform supporters. They're not going to listen to what Keir Starmer says.
No, I think that's the danger that Keir Starmer, the biggest problem he's got is that it would appear from all of the opinion poll evidence, and even really from the evidence of the election last year, albeit they won a landslide, but that was because of the vagaries really of our electoral system. They only got about 34% of the vote. That I think the public appear to have made up their minds on Keir Starmer. It would take an unbelievable change in the public mood for Keir Starmer to suddenly become popular and for voters to suddenly see him as the right man to be leading the country. Now, I actually thought that his speech today was good. I thought that he started off a little bit classic Starmer, a little bit robotic, but I thought he got into his stride and he was passionate. It seemed to be coming from the heart rather than being just read off an auto cue.
They've all had training.
It was read off an auto cue, but he actually looked like he meant it rather than just was going through the motions. But is it enough to change the public's mind? I don't really think it is.
No, they've all had training. They've all had. I can spot it a mile away. And Rachel Reeves was told to lower her voice as well, so she'd start to sound a bit like Margaret Thatcher or something.
I was exactly going to say that. She's gone a bit Margaret Thatcher, hasn't she? She's
totally.
Got a voice down 3 octaves.
Yeah. She's definitely had training. I know, because I used to do that sort of stuff. And the other story that the FT has gone with, which has really thrown me, because I would have thought they'd have gone on about the American government shutdown, it being a financial newspaper, but no, they've gone with the Hegseth telling fat generals to use invaded city as training grounds. It was quite extraordinary. I don't know if you saw any of the speeches that Trump and Hegseth gave to these mostly men, these generals and admirals. It was what the hell was that?
It was absolutely extraordinary. It was the fact that a lot of them they'd been called back from around the world.
Yeah, 12-hour flights, some of them.
Yeah, it was hundreds of them, not being told what it was about. Obviously thinking it was going to be something pretty serious.
Yeah,
understandably. And it was basically they were just being bawled out by Hegseth, a former TV presenter, and Donald Trump, who never served in the military himself. And they obviously, as dutiful military personnel and 5-star generals, etc., had to sit there and take it and not show any emotion, not respond in any way.
No applause at the end of Hegseth's speech, which he thought he was going to get.
Well, that spoke volumes.
The silence was deafening.
absolutely. And it really was, just another extraordinary day in Trump's America. Again, the like of which we've never seen before. We may never see again. And to what purpose? I've got absolutely no idea. But it was absolutely extraordinary. Talking about your fat generals and
you've all got to do PT every day, mandated by Hegseth. I mean, no wonder they don't respect him. I mean, they just sat there being told off like schoolboys that they're not allowed to have facial hair. They've got to everyone's got to shave. If you want a beard, go join the SAS or something, or join the Special Forces. It was the most bizarre thing, and all these, like I said, largely men who literally have served their country for most of their lives.
Yep.
They've given up family time, they've given up their children growing up, they've given up marriages, they've given up their health, and they have literally signed their life away in the defence of the country, being bawled at by Hegseth and Trump. I mean,
it's just extraordinary. I mean, the quote here from Hegseth, if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honourable thing and resign. I
mean, seriously. I saw something earlier on which made me laugh. I said, he's talking about fat generals. Wait till he sees the commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
Absolutely crackers. I mean, literally it is the gift that keeps on giving at the moment, America. And the Secretary of War, I think we have to call him now, Pete Hegseth, they hate him. I mean, you could just see it on their faces. They absolutely do not respect him at all. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And right now on Talk, you're with Petrie and with me, Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Kevin, let's have a look at The Guardian. It seems like Keir Starmer is wanting to bribe his backbenchers with the 2-child benefit cap being lifted in the autumn budget. That'll be the giveaway, won't it, that Rachel Reeves is graciously going to deal with.
Yeah, but I mean, she's going to have to find £3 billion to pay for it, which is on top of the £5 billion she's got to try and find that was meant to come from cutting the welfare budget, but which they couldn't get through because of a backbench rebellion. As you say, this is Keir Starmer's attempt now to curry favour with his backbenchers. And also, you know, we talk a lot about the threat from reform to Labour. There's also a big threat on the left as well. Not just from the Lib Dems, but from the Greens. So, you know, this will obviously go down very well with those on the left of the political spectrum. As you say, many on his backbench. Now, this is something that Keir Starmer, during the election campaign, said he wouldn't do.
Yeah.
He would not lift the 2-child cap because basically we couldn't afford it. Now, there's nothing that has happened as far as the economy has economic performance is concerned, which suddenly makes us rich. Suddenly there's money, you know, behind the sofa that we didn't know we had. This money has to be found from somewhere. Now, I got an inkling of this last week, and I wrote about it at the weekend, that he had decided to lift the 2-child cap. It wasn't going to be announced at conference, but it would be announced at some point later in the year, ahead of the budget or at the budget. Now, one Labour MP put it to me as, well, yeah, he has to do it, but it does mean he'll have to pay for it probably from other cuts in the welfare budget as a quid pro quo, is how they put it to me. So, yeah, on the one hand, they'll be given with this 2-child cap, but on the other, they'll have to find the money from somewhere, which will mean painful cuts or tax rises, which are not going to go down well with Labour MPs. But I guess it will just be presented with, well, look, you can't have everything, guys. You've been screaming about lifting the 2-child cap for a very long time. Understandably, all the experts say this is the one thing guaranteed to lift hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty at a stroke. Labour have pledged to bring down child poverty, so you can see the benefits of doing it. However, how are you going to find the money for it? Well, you're going to have to swallow difficult choices elsewhere, and that is what politics is all about. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what wheeze Rachel Reeves comes up with on the 26th of November to explain how she's going to be able to pay for it.
Yeah, it's slightly coincidental that VAT on private medical care would raise between 2 and 3 billion.
Although Wes Streeting was specifically asked about that this morning.
Yeah.
And he said it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. That's what he said. If we end up doing it, then that would be a massive slap in the face to him.
Yeah, well, we all know how guarantees go with governments.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's very unusual for a politician.
Yeah,
usually, when it comes to the budget, they hide behind, well, you know, I don't want to, you know, preempt the budget. That's up to the Chancellor, all the usual weasel words. But he was very, very clear, West Street today, saying...
But he's quite a bully with Keir Starmer, isn't he, though? We know this of him. He's already said to Keir Starmer, you leave these things alone. And so he stands up to Starmer, so maybe that is what he hopes to do with this. It's an interesting one. I mean, I see the Andy Burnham threat written all over this, this capitulation. Yet again by Keir Starmer, going back on what he said he wouldn't do or would do, that he's trying to appease the lefties.
Yeah, and undoubtedly that's exactly what he's trying to do. He realises that he needs to throw them something, to try and get back in their good books, or at least stop them from trying to bring them down. I mean, Andy Burnham, you mentioned Andy Burnham, I think he has played his hand so badly in the past week. You know, he's gone far too early, you know, giving the big interviews to the New Statesman and the Telegraph, you know, basically, you know, showing quite a bit of ankle to Labour activists, turning up at lots of fringe events this week, being followed around by the paparazzi, and yet at the end of the day, he ended up having to say, yeah, I support Keir Starmer continue. And you think, well, hang on a minute, what's been the point of all this, Andy?
Yeah, what are you
that's
doing?
What ended up saying. And today, interestingly enough, he was pictured leaving the conference centre before Keir Starmer even made his speech. So almost like he was scuttling away with his tail between his legs. So it's not probably gone, I think, quite as well as Andy Burnham hoped it would.
I know he needed to be offered a safe seat, didn't he? So you know that maybe he's just realised that he has just overplayed his hand, and that wasn't going to happen.
I think I think that's right. I think he thought that it would be a lot easier to find a seat.
Yeah.
Someone in the northwest would helpfully give up their seat,
like Angela Rayner, perhaps,
to stand. Well, who knows what Angela Rayner's long-term plans are? But you know, it's not even as if he could be handed a seat. He would need to stand in a by-election. Opinion polls. Is there such a thing as a safe Labour seat right now? I'm not so sure that there is.
I agree.
So there's so many different moving parts for Andy Burnham that it was always going to be difficult for him. So he had to play a really clever game, and I don't think he's done that this past week.
No, I completely agree with you. It's been interesting to watch, though. So watching them on manoeuvres. Let's have a look at the Independent. A great photograph on the front there. Starmer will never surrender Britain to enemy Farage, and it is, most of the front pages are covering that big story from the conference. The Daily Express, I can clean up the almighty mess. As next PM. This is exactly what you're saying, and what you said a moment ago is they all blame each other. You know, the fact that the Tories were in for 13, 14 years or whatever, suddenly this last year has created this almighty mess that Kemi is the person to clean up.
Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, this is a really left field splash from the Daily Express, because, you know, one thing that was really noticeable about Keir Starmer speaks today is that he didn't mention Kemi Badenoch once.
I know. She's not a threat.
For a Labour Prime Minister not to mention the Leader of the Opposition in his speech is probably unprecedented. Now, there was a passing reference to the Conservative Party, but that was all it was, a throwaway reference. It was all about reform, and it is absolutely extraordinary the way that the Tories, at the moment anyway, have become a complete irrelevance in British politics. It's their party conference next week. That is going to be like a morgue. I think it's going to be so quiet. There's very little interest from the business community. I know from speaking to friends and contacts in the lobbying arena that they're not really bothering about it, or the ones that are going are saying there's going to be no MPs there. You know, we're trying to organise events, lunches, coffees, and no one is turning up, which kind of gives an indication as to where the Conservative Party is right now. So it is a surprise, to say the least, that the Daily Express has splashed on an interview with Kemi Badenoch. You know, it's not exactly the interview they all wanted.
No,
anyone wanted it, but it does stand out. You know, on the newsstand, it does stand out because it's a bit different. There's no sign of Keir Starmer at all on the front page of the Daily Express. But yeah, isn't it funny? You know, I can clean up the almighty mess. Well, yeah, you were a pretty central figure of the last government, which didn't exactly leave the country in a great place.
No.
In July last year, which
suddenly,
is why people thrashed.
Kemi's the answer. I tell you what would be interesting next week, Kevin, to see what kind of press coverage there is with the Tory party conference. And I'm sure a lot of people are sending their press up there because it is the opposition. But when you look at the Lib Dems, who've got 72 MPs compared to and the coverage they got compared to Reform with their 4 MPs, or you know, it was completely disproportionate. So I'll just be interested to see how much, you know, the likes of Sky or Talk or anyone cuts to these big speeches. Yeah,
I mean, I imagine they will, if only for reasons of balance and impartiality, they've got to show these speeches, you know, because they've showed, as you say, the Lib Dems, they've showed Reform, Labour. Now they've they're duty bound. So it's not like a news judgment. They've kind of got to show it. It'll be interesting to see what coverage gets in the newspapers, because the problem that Kevin Badenoch has got, our main problem is no one really believes that she's going to become Prime Minister one day. No one really believes that she'll still be Conservative leader come the next general election. So it's difficult to justify giving them wall-to-wall coverage or giving her speech a lot of coverage when it's probably not going to move the political weather 1 inch. Really, at the moment, it is all about reform and Labour. As things stand at the moment, the next Prime Minister is either going to be, or still be Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage, but that's obviously assuming that Keir Starmer is still Labour leader come the next election as well.
Well, you know my feelings on that. But you've got to, I mean, whilst talking about politics, there is no doubt that the job that Nigel Farage has done to put himself in this political position is absolutely extraordinary. You know, a fringe party, a private company, to manoeuvre into this position where it is just now Labour and Reform is quite breathtaking. You've got to tip your hat.
No, absolutely. And, you know, his greatest achievement, I think, will still be Brexit.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, the fact that he managed to almost single-handedly keep the flame burning for Britain leaving the EU when it wasn't fashionable in any way, shape or form. He managed to achieve that without even being an MP. I mean, that was an extraordinary achievement in itself. Whether or not you agree with Brexit or not, I think you have to admit that was remarkable.
He's quite the communicator.
Yeah, he's an extraordinary communicator. And if he was to become Prime Minister, and I think it's still a big if, I don't think it's nailed down by any stretch of the imagination, but if he were to become Prime Minister, that would even top that, really. To take a political party that didn't really exist this time last year, really, to leading comfortably in the polls now, if he was to maintain this momentum and sweep into Downing Street, it would be remarkable. He is helped, though, I think, by the fact that the public are just heartily sick and tired of certainly the Conservatives and also Labour's performance thus far in power. So they are a great repository for that anti-politics vote, almost. But you know, it's still a long way to go between now and the general election, and a lot of things can change between now and then.
Absolutely, and not least that you know, Farage and Reform have got to knuckle down on some actual policy stuff and costings and things like that. Yeah,
and there have been a few missteps lately as well. You know, going back to the conference a few weeks ago when they platformed this anti-vaccine doctor who claimed that the COVID vaccine had given the king cancer. I mean, that's the type of thing that I think stops people in their tracks and makes them think, maybe this party is a bit crazy, you know. So Farage is smart, though. He's not daft. You won't see that doctor again. That won't happen again, you know. So there are these potential pitfalls, I think, are still lying in wait.
Do I need to take another break? Yes, I do. So a quick break, Kevin. We'll be back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning. It is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour with me, Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. The Daily Mirror for today, Wednesday, October the 1st, pinch punch. First day of the month and all of that. They again are going with the Starmer and Farage love-in. But the little story at the top, this has been on quite a few of the front pages, just in nib form, is Prince William saying, "I miss Granny," talking about Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's still, you have to pinch yourself sometimes actually how much the royal family now open up about things.
It's odd, isn't it?
It is odd. Having grown up being used to the Queen, obviously, and it was very traditional. As much as everyone loved the Queen, we didn't really know what innermost thoughts were on anything, because that just wasn't the done thing. Whereas now this generation, they sing like canaries, really. They're forever telling you their feelings, and obviously Prince Harry maybe broke the mould, writing autobiographies and what have you. I'm not sure William will ever go that far, but yeah, it is quite noteworthy, certainly, and you can see why it's on the front page of the Daily Mirror. And and just on a human level, I suppose you can understand. Of course, he's going to miss his granny. She lived to a ripe old age, and so he knew her all his life, right up until into his 40s, I guess.
And he would have become even more. She would have become even more important with his mother dying when he was so young as well. So there's that special connection as well with them. It's a very sad photograph of William on the Mirror. They've got a really thoughtful picture there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does show you how much he's aged as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously he's a very young man, and the Queen looks young as well. And that picture of the two of them, it looks like they're on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, doesn't it? And he probably still maybe in his late teens, early 20s then.
Looks like it. Yeah.
And he's really aged since then. But yeah. Obviously, he's going to miss his grandmother, and as you mentioned about his mother dying when he was very young, he's obviously had his fair share of family, close family members, losing close family members in his life. Petrie's microphone appears to have gone, so I'm afraid, viewers, you're stuck with me right now. So yeah, anyway, yeah. So the Prince William and talking about how he misses the Queen. I think he probably speaks for quite a lot of people in the country who still miss the Queen. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes. The other story in the front of the Mirror, obviously, is about Farage and Starmer, as you would expect. The Daily Mirror, as a Labour paper, maybe not taking it quite in the same way that the Daily Mail would by attacking Starmer. They're giving it a very positive spin on the speech for as far as Keir Starmer is concerned, and there's no doubt that it's the whole Reform versus Labour thing, I think, is pretty much fired the starting gun, actually, scarily enough, for the next general election. So that's going to be how it's going to be for the next 3 or 4 years, unless the Tories can somehow turn it around. It's just going to be Labour and Reform knocking lumps at each other for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's going to be very unedifying, isn't it? Thank you for filling there, Kevin. I don't know why my microphone just suddenly decided to die. Well done. You passed the test. Just right at the end of the programme as well. That is just ridiculous. That was a brilliant bit of work, by the way. I was very, very, very impressed by that. So the Daily Mail, the day Labour dragged politics into the gutter. Strong words there from the Mail. And the Daily Star news with a wink. Keir's snakes and leaders.
Yeah, they've managed. We've talked about this before, Petrie, haven't we? About the sort of artwork on the front of the Daily Star. They're back on form, I think.
Yeah.
With this one, you've got everything really on the front page. We've got a ladder, we've got a snake, we've got Nigel Farage climbing the ladder, Keir Starmer sticking his head out from behind the ladder, Andy Burnham's in there. As well.
Yeah, they've got the Pritt stick out again, haven't they?
Yes.
And the blunt scissors that they cut all the images out with. Look, there's no doubt about it that Keir Starmer is completely embattled at the moment, but I kind of think he deserves it.
Okay, yeah, I mean it's been a miserable first 14 months, isn't it, as Prime Minister, and
he's not covered himself in glory.
He's not covered himself in glory. If he is still Prime Minister this time next year, he'll have been doing very well indeed, because as much as today's speech, as I said earlier, was good, I think, as far as Keir Starmer's concerned, it was probably his best one as leader. These elections coming in May, this won't make a blind bit of difference unless somehow they turn things around, the economy starts going gangbusters and people feel a lot better off between now and then. It's only 7 months away, so I think that's probably unlikely. Labour are on course for an absolute kicking in Wales, in Scotland, London.
Yeah, and that'll determine everything.
And I think if it's really bad, if it's as bad as the poll suggests right now, then I would be amazed if there isn't some sort of challenge.
Yeah. Very quickly, because we've got about 45 seconds, but I just wanted to mention this story. Babies could be born without mothers after egg cell breakthrough. Now, basically, my understanding is they've discovered how to make egg cells, if you like, from skin. So what it means is that two men could have a baby that was biologically theirs by using this.
Genetic.
Unbelievable.
Material from both of them, exactly.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I just think it's fascinating. Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Well done, thank you. Kevin Schofield, their political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Nearly out of time, but I